Hi everyone. The guest for the interview today is Ajnav Teka. Ajnav heads talent management at Tata Power, one of the largest integrated power companies in India with more than 20,000 employees. Uh, Ajnav brings us a lot of experience in a wide range of HR roles, having served for more than 2 decades in reputed companies like Tata Power, Nelco, Reliance Retail, and Torrent Power. So Ajnav, welcome to this interview. Thanks for being here and looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Anjal. It is my pleasure to be here today.
Great. So Ajnav, you work at Tata Power, and managing talent in an organization like Tata Power can be quite complex. On one hand, you have the legacy and standards set by the Tata Group. On the other hand, you have a workforce which is rapidly growing and across the entire value chain from generation to distribution. So how have you been able to manage these uh, different kind of challenges in the way you have designed your talent initiatives, and how has digital helped you with managing some of these challenges?
Sure. So, Tata Power, as you know, in its current state, it is India's largest integrated company, present across diverse businesses like generation, transmission, distribution, renewable energy, and it has more than 23,000 employees. It has become complex because it used to be a single state. It was primarily in the state of Maharashtra just maybe 15 years back, 10, 15 years back. And now it has grown by, acquiring companies. So we supply to the entire state of Odisha. We have plants in Allahabad. We've recently acquired some transmission companies. We have coal mines in Indonesia. We have set up hydros in Georgia. So you can imagine the diversity of businesses and the spread of employees across the country. And these are people who are not just, been part of Tata Power for, significant amount of years, but people who have recently been integrated into the company, for example, the Odisha companies. So there is a large population out there which is part of the company, and we are only now starting to integrate them into our talent plans. So the complexity, like you rightly mentioned, it is very much there, both in terms of the business, because we are also a regulated company, and also in terms of the growth that this company is experiencing, and the need to have more and more people in its leadership and talent pipeline. So that is one of the biggest business needs that we are dealing with right now. And to support this, we have our flagship talent program called Talent Next. So it is our top talent selection and development program, where we identify high performing young employees and groom them for future leadership roles in the company. And these would be in areas which are upcoming businesses. These are all critical and challenging roles that have to be taken up by this talent pool. A very key component of this selection process is the Assessment Development Center. And the first cycle that we had was in FY20, and that was in person. It was in Mumbai. And there was a limitation of 60 participants because we had to be in a specific center. We had this many number of assessors, and we had a limitation of space and time, etc. And as part of the process optimization and to allow people to participate across the length and breadth of the country, we actually have people working in the most remote locations, especially in our solar and wind farms, the thermal projects. And typically they would need 3 days time off to take part in a single day of assessment centers. So we had actually planned to go digital even before the pandemic had started. And pandemic only provided the trigger for this digital journey that we are on currently. And actually from FY21 onwards, our entire process has been hosted digitally with the help of Think Talent as a partner. while the content was ours, Think Talent provided all the required functionalities for administering and evaluating on assessment development centers. So this change has actually, impacted our key process outcomes in terms of cost, time, resource optimization. We have increased productivity of all the participants. We have actually been able to expand our assessment and thus the leadership pipeline.
Right. And that's a great story, because when we work with organizations across different sectors, Ajnav, we see this common trend of organizations looking to democratize their talent processes and scale them up to cover, increase coverage. So, you talked about scaling up Talent Next, or you at least mentioned that. So as you scaled up Talent Next, through the years, what have been some of the factors you had to look into and challenges you had to address as you scaled up this program?
Yes, so we actually had 4 successful runs of Talent Next, and when we started the process this year, we stepped back to understand where we were headed and whether we were able to bolster the leadership pipeline, because we realized that opportunities were getting restricted to only a select few, because by design it was a step-by-step elimination process. So suppose in round 1, which is cognitive testing, there would be 300 high-performing employees who appeared. Only 60 to 75 would be selected for the next round, because that was the design of the assessment center. And only 20 people would make it to the final round, which is the top management interviews. And at the end of this, only 6 to 8 people would make it to the talent pool. And what we saw was that Tata Power, in its current phase of rapid growth, this is just not enough, right? So we solutioned this with Think Talent, and we finalized on the idea of democratization of talent. And what this means is that a large number of candidates will go through the assessments, and not just that, there will also be a learning journey, which would cover the entire spectrum of assessment and development. We call these centers assessment development centers. And by introducing the concept of learning journeys, this time we have truly fulfilled the concept of assessment development center. So I'm proud to share that this year we had 400 employees who participated in digital assessment centers. And the end outcome was 22 selections. So today, in all, we have a talent pool of 45 young leaders, and we were able to double the pipeline in just 1 year with the use of digital tools.
Right. That's interesting, and that is where you leverage the power of digital really well, and leverage the possibilities of scaling up, like you said. One of the things, Ajnav, we have noticed is that part of scaling up these programs successfully is changing the lens with which you design the programs, make them more participant centric, as sometimes it is called. So how have you looked at that aspect in redesigning Talent Next, and what elements of the program have been changed to make it more participant centric?
Sure. So as I mentioned, this year we did have to look at the design of the assessment center. We have people from different backgrounds who actually participate in our assessment centers, and we used to custom make all the exercises, and these are contextualized to Tata Power business scenarios. So I could be someone from a thermal operations background, but I will be participating in a situation to do with solar powers, to do with EV charging, to do with IT project, etc. And similarly, people from different backgrounds go through the same exercises, and you are evaluated on the basis of our Tata Power AMP leadership competencies. So one of the feedback that we got was that, can we, since we're not from that background, is it possible to have exposure to something more neutral, something more democratic in that sense. So this was a part of the change. So when we talked about democratization of talent, we literally opened up the floor to more and more people. And what this involved was that we had two rounds of assessments. So earlier, if you remember, I talked about a step-by-step elimination. This time, we were largely talking about asynchronous process and a synchronous process, and this entire assessment was done digitally. So in asynchronous processes, which actually enabled participants to connect and participate anytime, anywhere. These involve cognitive testing, it involved the personality test, in-basket exercises, and situational judgment test. And this was all Think Talent content that we were able to use. And the second part was the synchronous exercise. So people who qualified in the asynchronous exercises attended an assessment on a specific time slot, and this was assessor-led. And these were two cases which were pertinent to Tata Power, which was a business case study analysis and presentation, and a team or a peer handling role play. This was completely contextualized to Tata Power. So this is one major redesign that we did. So earlier, where we had 5 cases which were pertaining to Tata Power context, this time we revised that to just 2, and then we used Think Talent content for the asynchronous assessments. So this literally opened up opportunities for a large number of people because they tended to feel a bit restricted that if I'm not from a certain background, then how do I perform in that particular role play or a case study or a group discussion? So this was a big change in thinking that we had taken up this year, and this was positively received. We actually took the feedback from all 400 participants, and largely it was very, very positive feedback. And there was an overall score of 4.7 on 5. And what people liked about it, what they appreciated was the friendliness of the approach. That's actually a word they used, the friendliness, and the changes which were very welcoming. And many of them found the experience valuable for their personal and professional development. And in fact, they have described it as being helpful for their learning, and they found it very, very well organized in terms of the structure. And most importantly, there has been this feeling of involvement and that the company cares for us. In all, it was a very seamless candidate experience that was achieved through this Think Talent portal, because everything was on the same platform. We had the digital assessments, we had the assessor-led assessments, evaluation, the reports were generated through the portal, and also this was followed through with a learning journey, which candidates can go through over a period of 8 weeks and develop their managerial effectiveness. And so this concept of learning journey was very important this year, and it actually served to promote the fact that it doesn't remain a one-off exam, as they call it. Otherwise, a lot of people think that I just appear for an exam, I pass it, and I get promoted, and that's it. But the story doesn't end here. It's all about assessment and development, and learning journey ensures that the journey continues. And in all, we were able to facilitate the program well in terms of managing the assessment time, and now we are starting the development journey as well.
Right. No, and like you said, I think one of the interesting things we have observed is that while the personal development or the professional development is one outcome that is obviously an outcome that comes out of a initiative like this, but also when we have worked with companies, we see an increase in scores on elements like inclusiveness and fairness in talent processes, which is sometimes an unexpected outcome from a initiative like this. You don't really expect it to impact those variables, but they tend to come out, especially when you do your employee satisfaction surveys or other similar initiatives. That tends to come out in the feedback that you receive from participants, which is useful given the importance of retaining this talent and making them feel part of the organization. So certainly a good example of that as well, Ajnav. So Ajnav, the last question, which is that, we work with organizations across sectors, and specifically, when we talk to organizations which are very focused on the infrastructure sector, so sometimes when we focus on organizations which are into manufacturing, one of the, a set of comments that we often hear from HR leaders is that, our people on the ground are not interested in these things. They are not willing to be part of talent initiatives. How has been your experience around that? Do you agree with that comment, or have you been able to see something different with your own population?
Yeah, we had a really exciting and pleasant experience actually. And since all these assessments, whether it was the asynchronous assessments, which was Think Talent content, which was based on real life situations, non-power industry, and also the synchronous exercises, which were based in on power industry, it was something which the participants could learn from. They were not exposed to those kind of situations before. So, simulating these real life work situations makes it very interesting for them. And there is a lot of learning as well. So I think that aspect was appreciated by all the participants. To make this really successful, it is important to have a simple, user-friendly, and rather intuitive design of digital portal and the exercises. And so the interactions that we have in the synchronous exercises, so these were embedded, in the portal itself. The Microsoft Teams links were embedded in the portal. And Teams is anyway being used by everybody on a daily basis. So the portal plus the Teams link, I think the digital aspect of it was very comfortable and familiar for the participants. This is what we like about the Think Talent portal. Very simple, easy to use, and very effective functionalities. And we found that if we give proper guidance on navigating both the portal, the process, we can create a very positive candidate experience. And I really believe that thanks to technology, democratization of talent is possible.
That's a great message to lots of companies which are just starting off on this digital adoption curve and are thinking about whether it will work for them or not. So thanks, Ajnav, for being here today, and I think some really good insights for other HR professionals that I'm sure they will appreciate once they watch this interview. Thanks, Ajnav.
Thank you, Anjul. My pleasure.